2 on a Sunday afternoon, sun hard on the windscreen, and a gloved hand waves you into the breath testing lane. Servo coffee going warm in the cup holder. Engine off. Hands at 10 and 2. License out before he asks. You blow. It comes back clear. And then the second officer, the quiet one who's been walking your rear plate, leans to your gap in the glass and says it like he's asking for the time. Wind it all the way down for me, mate. Not a charge, not a question. A trained move with a job to do on a stretch of road where random breath testing has needed no reason at all for 40 years. Your hand's already reaching for the switch because saying no feels rude. Here's the part nobody tells you. Those next 4 seconds are the whole stop. And most people pay for them months later in a courtroom. Freeze it there. His hand's out, your fingers on the switch, and the whole afternoon hangs on a movement that feels like basic manners. So sit with the strange fact underneath it, because everything runs on this. He never needed a reason to be at your window. Under Schedule 3, Clause 3 of the Road Transport Act 2013 here in New South Wales, police can pull over any driver for a random breath test, anytime, with no suspicion of anything at all. Not a swerve, not a busted tail light, nothing he has to write down. And the scale of that is hard to picture. In 2022 to 2023, New South Wales Police ran 3,727,999 random breath tests. Every car on that road is a lawful contact. So the stop cost him nothing, which means the stop was never the game. Here's the reframe to carry the whole way through. The stop cost him nothing, but the case cost him your cooperation. Nothing he does today escalates this. Only what you add does. By the end, you'll have one sentence, just one, that closes this whole encounter down. And there's one moment where staying silent is the mistake. I'll show you exactly where that line sits. But before the switch, you have to understand what that open window is actually for. Because a window is a small thing, and the ladder it starts is not. Watch how 3 steps become a courtroom. The wind down becomes a smell. The smell becomes a search, and the search becomes a court date months from now, where the first exhibit against you is a sentence you said on the shoulder of a road, trying to be friendly. That's the whole architecture. And you climb the first rung yourself, smiling. Here's the part that decides how today ends. Under Section 89 of the Evidence Act 1995, your silence at that window generally can't be used against you. Not as guilt, not as suspicion. But everything you say goes in a notebook, and the notebook never forgets. So there are 2 of you at that glass. There's the helpful self, the one who fills silences and explains and wants the officer to like him. And there's the protected self, quieter, duller, the person the law already lets you be. The helpful self loses. Quick word on who's telling you this. No invented career here, no wig and gown. Just plain English Australian law, checked against the statutes, every section named in the description so you can read it yourself tonight. First though, the part where the law is entirely on his side, because getting the next 90 seconds wrong is how an ordinary stop becomes an arrest. So let's be honest about what you genuinely owe him, because this is the wall that pseudo-law can't climb, and you'll always get it straight here. 1. You must stop. Refusing to pull over for a breath test is its own offence under Schedule 3, Clause 3, and failing to stop when you're directed runs all the way to Section 39 of LEPRA, up to $5,500 and 12 months. 2. You must produce your licence and give your name and address. Section 175 of that same Road Transport Act. 3. You must blow. And if a saliva test is put to you, you take that too. Refusing the roadside test is an offence on its own, and refusing the evidentiary analysis back at the booze bus is treated as seriously as high-range drink driving, up to 18 months for a first offence under Schedule 3, Clause 16. That charge lands on people who'd had nothing to drink. 4. You obey lawful directions, including a direction to step out of the car. So hear this plainly, because it's the load-bearing line of this whole channel. There are no magic words. Anyone online selling you a script that makes police vanish is auditioning you for a night in the cells. Do the musts in full, and you strip the word uncooperative. And the charge of hindering police, Section 546C of the Crimes Act, 12 months, off the table before either can be written. The musts are finished in about 90 seconds. Everything the trap is hunting for lives in the space after they end, starting with 6 words about your window. Wind it all the way down for me, mate. That's move 1. And it feels like nothing, which is exactly why it works. Here's what it's actually doing. It's turning your car into an open container of evidence. A gap. Enough to talk through, enough to pass a license, hands him nothing. A window all the way down hands him 3 things at once. A clear, plain view of your interior, the smell of the cabin, and the reach to put a hand near the door. And here's the fact almost nobody knows. No law in Australia requires you to wind the window down fully. Not one. You're required to lower it enough to communicate and produce your documents. No further. What that fully open window feeds is Section 36 of LEPRA, the power to search a car without a warrant on reasonable suspicion. The wrong response is the one your hand's already making. The switch goes down all the way. A smile. No worries, officer. And your cabin is now a display case with a police officer reading it. So do this instead. And it's the whole title in one move. The gap, and only the gap. Engine off. Both hands where he can see them. License ready in your fingers. That keeps you fully compliant on every must while denying him the one sensor that builds grounds against you. Because the moment that window's all the way down, his next move needs no words from you at all, just his nose. What's that smell? You right there, mate? And notice, that's often not a question. It's a lean in, a nose finding the gap you just opened. What it's doing is manufacturing the reasonable suspicion that turns a free stop into a lawful search, built out of whatever your open window let out. The standard he has to reach isn't high, and it isn't nothing. It comes from a case called Rondo, decided in the New South Wales Court of Criminal Appeal in 2001, where Chief Justice Spiegelman set the test. A reasonable suspicion involves less than a reasonable belief, but more than a possibility. And there has to be some factual basis for it. Smell can contribute to that basis. Plain view can contribute to that basis. Now, be careful with what you've heard online. No New South Wales case squarely says the smell of cannabis on its own is enough. The closest authority is a South Australian case called Kohler from 2002, where a strong cannabis smell at a lawful breath testing station legitimately led to a search. So the danger is real and it's specific. The wrong response is the instinct to explain the smell away. Oh, that's probably my mate's. He was in here earlier. Which in one breath gives him a smell, a third party, and an admission. What he can lawfully do next is decided by what your open window and your mouth put into that factual basis. But smell isn't even the worst of it. There's one question where he doesn't need grounds at all because you hand him the warrant yourself. Mind if I have a quick look through the car? Won't take a sec. This is the one move where the law stands completely still and waits for you. Follow the logic because it lands somewhere that should stop you cold. If he already has grounds, he's searching either way and your answer changes nothing. So that question, the polite one, only matters in the exact situation where he doesn't have grounds. And in that situation, your yes is the only thing that makes the search lawful. There's a case called Leonard in the New South Wales Supreme Court in 2001, where a search with no reasonable grounds was held lawful purely because the driver consented. His words were, "Go for it, there is nothing in here," and cannabis was found. Read that again. Consent turns an otherwise unlawful search into a lawful one. Your yes is the warrant, and it's the only warrant he'll ever get from you. And the shield runs the other way too. In a case called Street versus Bauer, Justice Smart held that bold and irritating conduct must be distinguished from conduct which might be characterised as suspicious, meaning your refusal, even a blunt one, can never itself become his grounds. Saying no costs you nothing. The wrong response is the cheerful one. Yeah, no worries, nothing to hide. The most expensive courtesy in Australian law. Withhold the yes, and an ungrounded search has nowhere to go but a courtroom later on your terms. So he stops asking to look. And he starts asking about your afternoon. And the questions open like a corridor of doors, each one swinging the next one wide. Where are you coming from? That's a timeline, now written down. Been anywhere with a drink? That's an admission hook. Whose car is this? That's a third party, named in your own voice on a body-worn camera. Anything of theirs still in here? And there it is, grounds for a search built out of your own mouth in under 30 seconds. But here's the line the law actually draws. You owe him identity, not itinerary. Section 14 of LEPRA only compels you to say who was in the car where police reasonably suspect the vehicle was used in an indictable offence, and a Sunday afternoon breath test is nowhere near that. Everything past your name is a door you can decline to open. And before you decide the answer is to go cold and stare through the windscreen, know the trap underneath the trap. Chat too much, and the notes read nervous, over-explaining, go stone silent and hostile, and they read evasive, uncooperative. The account gets written either way. The third way isn't chatty, and it isn't stony. It's located. The same flat, polite line every time. One number for the scale of this. In that same year, New South Wales also ran 113,955 roadside drug tests, 17,500 of them positive. The machine idling quietly behind the small talk. Every polite answer you give narrows your account and hands him something to test for inconsistency. An inconsistency reads as suspicion even when it's innocent. And if the script in your head right now has an American accent, we need to fix that before the words will work. Because that's where most people go wrong. They're running lines from a video shot on the other side of the world. So 4 corrections, fast. 1, there's no probable cause. Here. The standard is reasonable suspicion, a lower and different bar, the rondo bar. 2, there's no Miranda. Nobody has to read you your rights at a roadside stop. That's not how it works in this country. 3, there's no Fifth Amendment. What you have is Section 89 of the Evidence Act, and it protects your silence differently and more quietly. 4. I do not consent is not a spell that ends anything already lawful. What it actually does, after Leonard, is keep your yes out of his case. And that, not the phrase, is the whole game. One more thing, said plainly so you're never caught out. This is New South Wales law. Cross the border and the sections change under you. In Queensland, obstruction runs through section 790 of the Police Powers and Responsibilities Act. In Victoria, the testing power sits in the Road Safety Act 1986 and hindering under section 51 of the Summary Offences Act. Same window, different statute, and sometimes a genuinely different answer. Those states get their own videos. We're getting close to the exact words now. Here they are, 3 clauses built to be said through a half-open window. So say it with me, slowly, because his shadows across your gap, and this is the whole video. Officer, here's my license. My window's down enough to talk, and I'll take any breath test and follow any direction you give me. I'm not answering questions, and I don't consent to any search. Once more, because the second time is the one that stays. Officer, here's my license. My window's down enough to talk, and I'll take any breath test and follow any direction you give me. I'm not answering questions, and I don't consent to any search. Screenshot this. Say it out loud once tonight in your own kitchen, so it lives in your mouth and not in a notes app. Now watch what each clause is doing, because there's no wasted word. The first part, the license, the window down enough to talk, the breath test, the directions, hands over everything the law actually owns. Section 175, Schedule 3, every lawful direction. That kills uncooperative, and it forecloses a hindering charge under Section 546C before either can be written. The second part, I'm not answering questions, closes the doors and the timeline, and Section 89 makes that silence free. The third part, I don't consent to any search, withholds the one thing, the Leonard thing, that could ever legalise a search he can't otherwise justify. And Street versus Bauer means that refusal can't rebound into grounds. Delivery is half of it, calm, polite, flat. A man declining a survey, not a man making a stand. The words carry the law. Your tone just has to carry the words. Boring is invisibility, and invisibility ends stops. Must satisfied, questions closed, consent withheld. The stop has nowhere left to go, but the ticket or the goodbye. And now he pushes. They always push. Push one arrives wrapped in reasonableness. If you've got nothing to hide, why not just answer? And you don't debate it. You don't soften it. You don't add a word. Officer, here's my license. My window's down enough to talk, and I'll take any breath test and follow any direction you give me. I'm not answering questions, and I don't consent to any search. Push 2 arrives with an edge. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Same sentence, same flat tone. That's the third time you've heard it now. Muscle memory, which was the point. Then, when the paperwork stalls, the fork. Am I under arrest or am I free to go? Those 7 words force the encounter to declare itself. If he's exercising a power to hold you, Section 202 of LEPRA makes him give you his name, his place of duty, and the reason out loud. And here's the case that gives the fork its teeth. In R versus Buddy, in the New South Wales District Court in 2016, A driver blew a negative breath test and produced a valid license. And police questioned and searched him anyway and found drugs. The court threw the evidence out under section 138, and Judge McClintock's line should be the thesis of this whole channel. A power to allow them to arbitrarily stop and search anyone on a hunch or a suspicion, he wrote, is antithetical to any free society. The traffic powers, the court held, don't authorise stopping or detaining you for questioning. Once your licence is produced, the road safety purpose is spent. Purpose finished means detention finished. But there's one moment where that silence, that refusal, is the mistake. And it's time I paid that promise in full. Here it is, plainly, because getting this wrong hurts good people for no reason. The sentence goes back in your pocket for the musts. Refuse the breath test or the saliva test, and that's its own offence. The evidentiary refusal, reaching 18 months under Schedule 3, Clause 16 tar, and it catches sober drivers who thought they were standing on principle. Refuse to give your name or your licence under Section 175, or refuse a lawful direction to step out of the car, and you've handed him Section 546 IC, hindering 12 months. So hold the split hard. Silence is a shield for questions, never for obligations. Comply with your body every time. Withhold only your answers and your consent. Then the aftermath, because this is where it's actually won. Before you drive off, use Section 202. Get his name, his place of duty, the reason. Then sit in your driveway with the engine ticking cool and write it all down while it's fresh. Sign notes that same afternoon beat a memory at a hearing 11 months later. 2 edge cases. Your passenger holds the same silence and owes identity only on a genuine Section 14 trigger. And that saliva wipe tests for the presence of a drug, not impairment. A different thing from the breath tests alcohol reading and worth knowing. On filming, New South Wales Police's own guideline concedes they can't stop you recording from a public place, but touching a phone while your engine's running is itself an offence, so use a mount or a dash cam already rolling and keep the engine off. 2 people never to become: the over-explainer, who proves his innocence with a full itinerary and gift wraps the notebook, and the roadside lawyer who argues buddy through the window. That argument wins in a courtroom and loses on gravel. Now put it all together. Every one of these, the window, the smell, the consent, the doors, the push, the fork, I've gathered into a book called Know Your Rights. Links in the description, waiting for the day you weren't expecting. So let's put it all together. 6 moves, 1 sentence. Officer, here's my license. My window's down enough to talk, and I'll take any breath test and follow any direction you give me. I'm not answering questions, and I don't consent to any search. And carry the number that reframes the whole stop with us. After a drug detection dog flags a person, the 2006 New South Wales Ombudsman Review. Still the landmark on this, found prohibited drugs on only about a quarter of those searched. The nose is wrong, most of the time. This is general information, not advice. The laws differ by state and they change. If today's gone past a stop, the video ends and the lawyer begins. Legal aid exists in every state. Subscribe, not for luck, for the next window. So nobody in your family walks into this unbriefed. But if it's your front door instead of your window, the rules change completely. That video's on your screen now. and take the ending you just earned. The same lane, the coffee still just warm enough in the cup holder, the window rising back to a gap, your license sliding into your wallet, and the officer's shadow sliding off your glass and moving on to the next car back.